Background: West Papua is the western half of the island of New Guinea, bordering the independent nation of Papua New Guinea. It lies just 200 kilometers north of Australia. The land comprises a large mountainous interior, forest lowlands, large areas of coastal mangrove swamps, and is surrounded by numerous small islands and coral reefs. West Papua is home to over 250 diverse tribes, all speaking their own unique languages with unique cultures. West Papua was originally populated by Melanesian people some tens of thousands of years ago. The majority of the indigenous population still live traditional subsistence lifestyles. The region has been under Indonesian military occupation since 1962 and is administered as two provinces, Papua and West Papua, in an attempt to control the Papuans and to claim the land to make way for resource extraction. The Indonesian army has systematically murdered, raped, and tortured people. Human rights groups estimate that over 500,000 civilians have been killed. A bit of history. After little contact with the Western world, West Papua was formally colonized by the Netherlands in 1898. The islands that now make up Indonesia were also colonized by the Dutch. But when the Republic of Indonesia became an independent nation-state in 1949, West Papua did not join the country. The Dutch government recognized that West Papua was geographically, ethnically, and culturally very different to Indonesia, and so the Dutch government began preparing West Papua for its own independence throughout the 1950s. At the end of 1961, West Papua held a congress at which its people declared independence and raised their new flag, the Morning Star. Within months, the Indonesian military invaded West Papua. Conflict broke out between the Netherlands, Indonesia, and the indigenous population regarding control of the country. The U.S. intervened and engineered an agreement between Indonesia and the Netherlands, which in 1962 gave control of West Papua to the United Nations, and 1 year later transferred control to Indonesia. The Papuans were never consulted. However, the agreement did promise them their right to self-determination, a right which is guaranteed by the UN to everyone on Earth. Act of no choice. It was agreed that the UN should oversee a plebiscite of the people of West Papua, in which they would be given two choices: to remain part of Indonesia or to become an independent nation once again. Held in 1969, this vote was to be called the Act of Free Choice. In the 7 years since it had occupied the country, the Indonesian military had killed and imprisoned thousands of Papuans. Yet it was under these conditions that the people were supposed to exercise their right to self-determination, declaring that the Papuans were too primitive to cope with democracy. The Indonesian military handpicked 1,026 representative Papuans out of a population of 1 million, threatened to kill them and their families if they voted the wrong way, and then told them to choose. The result was unanimous. West Papua would remain part of Indonesia, despite protests from the Papuans, a critical report by a UN official, and condemnation of the vote in the international media. The UN sanctioned the result, and West Papua has remained under control of the Indonesian state ever since. The people and land under attack. Since the first days of Indonesian occupation, the people and land of West Papua have been under relentless attack. In order to maintain control over the Papuans and to claim the land to make way for resource extraction, the Indonesian army has systematically murdered, raped, and tortured people in numbers that could constitute a genocide. One of the worst examples of this is the displacement and killing of thousands of people to make way for the giant American and British-owned Freeport mine, the largest gold mine in the world, which has reduced a sacred mountain to a crater and poisoned the local river system. Also, in a further attempt to dominate Papuan culture, around 1 million people from overcrowded shanty towns across Indonesia have been moved into transmigration camps cut into the forests. Resistance to Indonesian colonialism. Resistance to the Indonesian occupation started from the first days of occupation. An armed guerrilla group called the OPM, Free Papua Movement, was formed in 1970 to resist the colonization of West Papua. The OPM carried out a number of guerrilla attacks on the Indonesian military and on the holdings of multinational companies who had taken Papuan land and resources, including a successful attempt to close down the Freeport gold and copper mine. Armed mostly with bows and arrows, the small, ragged but determined OPM fought an almost unknown war against the well-armed Western-backed Indonesian military for decades. Recent years, following the fall of the Indonesian's military dictator General Suharto in 1998, a political space briefly opened up in